So the Pixel 5a is here, and as some of you might know, the A series of phones are usually some of my favorites that Google produces each year. They're usually not very flashy phones, but they... Alright, so let's start off by talking about what makes this phone, the Pixel 5a 5G, different from last year's Pixel 4a 5G, because right off the bat, this phone looks a lot like the Pixel 4a 5G. So I can count the list of differences on just one hand. We got a slightly bigger screen, a bigger battery, IP67 water and dust resistant, it's got a metal unibody, and it's $50 cheaper. So I can just barely count them on one hand, but still, that's not a lot of changes year over year for the new phone. In fact, things that are normally different, like processor and RAM, didn't actually get changed at all from last year's 4a 5G. Now, that isn't a bad thing because this phone has the Snapdragon 765G, same as last year's Pixel 5, and 6GB of RAM means it can usually handle almost everything I throw at it. In fact, it can handle everything. It just maybe slows down a little bit when you're launching some big games or playing something that's a little bit more graphically intensive. So otherwise, in terms of performance, I really don't have a problem with this phone at all. And I have been using this phone as my main phone for a month and a half since it's come out. So yeah, I can tell you definitively, if you are going to use this phone, you really won't feel a difference when you're using this. Like, you won't really notice that it's a slower phone because it's really not that bad at all. Now, the other thing that didn't change from last year's Pixel 4a 5G and Pixel 5 are the cameras. So this is another place where I don't really think that it's that big of an issue because the cameras for this price are really, really good. Like, you really cannot find other smartphone manufacturers who are making cameras at this price point that are as consistently good as what's on this Pixel phone right here. So Galaxy A52, the TCL 20 Pro, they can usually take some good pictures, but they're not going to be able to match what this can consistently output. So that's one of the reasons that people really recommend Pixel phones, and that's one of the reasons I really recommend it, because when it comes to taking pictures, this phone just really can't be beat at this price point. Now, it's not just mid-range phones that this camera can beat, it's in fact flagship phones like the Galaxy S21. The Galaxy S21 is a great phone. It has really, really good cameras, especially if you're someone who's into taking video. But when it comes to taking photos, my wife prefers this for capturing photos of our daughter over the Galaxy S21 any day, because this phone consistently gets the best pictures. Like, the Galaxy S21 can get some really, really good pictures, but this phone consistently gets good pictures. And that's something that I know I'm emphasizing a lot, but honestly, consistency matters a lot, because if you can't trust the camera, you're probably not gonna, try to take as many pictures. In fact, because I trust this camera so much, I just find myself taking a lot more pictures than I normally would. So that is where the Pixels for cameras, they just usually win, and in this case, it's still the same. I mean, it's literally the exact same camera, it's literally the exact same processing. Processing is a little slow, obviously 765G along with no Pixel neural core means the processing is a little slow, but otherwise, everything else works pretty well. So in terms of photo processing, this phone can do amazing things, but in terms of video processing, this phone has a few problems. So this phone can do 4K 60 from the main camera, but if you guys have seen any videos online, you know that the 4K 60 on this phone really has a problem with overheating. So I found that on my phone, and consistently I can get to about 3 minutes of 4K 60 recording, and then it shuts down to overheating. So that is not great. Now, the easy fix for that is switch over to 4K 30, and then you can also use it from both cameras. You can switch over between the two, and then it never basically overheats at all. It's 4K 60 that's the issue. I'm not sure what exactly the problem is, and I'm not even sure if Google can do anything about it, because this exact problem was also happening on the 4a 5G last year and the Pixel 5 last year as well. So I don't think there's anything they're going to do about it, but yeah, just if you're someone who's planning on buying this phone for 4K 60 recording, don't do that. Just know the fact that this phone can do 4K 30, and it looks pretty good most of the time. I will be doing a camera comparison between this phone and the Galaxy S21, so make sure you guys subscribe so you guys don't miss that. But yeah, in terms of video recording, I can already go ahead and tell you the Galaxy S21 probably will win. Alright, so at this point I've basically covered all the things that you could have actually probably found out if you just watched a Pixel 4a 5G review. So instead, let's switch gears and talk about the differences. So starting off with the screen. So the screen is slightly larger at a 6.32 inch versus the 6.2 inch from last year. It's still a 1080p OLED panel at 60 Hz. Now, the only part of that I am not a huge fan of is the 60 Hz. Like, at this point, I've been really spoiled by 90 Hz and 128 Hz screens, so going back to 60 Hz, it really does feel a little bit slower. But if you're someone who's never used a high refresh rate screen, you're not going to notice. This screen is really good for what it is. It also gets plenty bright, so viewing outdoors, not going to be really an issue. Even in direct sunlight, it's not really been a problem here at all. Additionally, it has great stereo speakers. Like, they didn't mention that they're better in any way, but they sound amazing. So yeah, that's great. And then along with the bigger screen means that this phone is fantastic for watching videos. All right, so next up, let's talk about the other big upgrade, and that is to the battery. In fact, this is the biggest upgrade of the phone as far as I'm concerned. So this thing packs a 4,680 milliamp hour battery, the biggest of any Pixel phone so far. And with the fact that this phone has the Snapdragon 765, which is a lower power processor, this phone can basically last me a day and a half easy. Like almost every single time, it is lasting me a day and a half easy. On really, really heavy days, like there was a day I took this to Mount Rainier, where I did like 5 hours of GPS, lots and lots of photos and pictures and things like that. So that day, it still got me to the end of the night without having for me to plug this in, which is amazing. Like I took a charger with me, but never had to use it. So yeah, in terms of battery, this has been one of the best phones I've used in terms of battery. That's just it. Like this phone easily lasts me as long as I need it to. And then finally, the other upgrades for this phone are in terms of construction. So like I mentioned, this phone is the first A-series phone to have IP67 water and dust resistance, which means that you can take this phone to a pool, drop it in the water, and as long as you get it relatively quick, within 30 minutes, you should be pretty good. In fact, I wouldn't throw it in for that long, but you should be pretty good. Like, you don't have to worry about this phone in the rain. You don't have to worry if you get this thing in sand. Now, to me, this was never a very important feature until this year when my wife accidentally dropped my Pixel 4a into a lake and it just completely stopped working. The screen is completely dead. The phone works, I just have to replace the screen, but still, that is something that it was just in the water for like a second. We got it out quickly, but the damage is already done. So having IP67 water rating, well, not something that I want to count on. It's great that it's here, and hopefully it can survive a couple splashes in water and it won't be a big deal. Now, the other part of construction that's been improved is, like I said, this phone has a metal unibody inside. Now, the outside of here is still plastic, which it's a nice soft plastic. Also in this, if you guys can tell, so this is called mostly black, but as you guys can tell, it's actually a little bit of a forest green color as well. So I don't know, I really like this color, and if you look at it in certain lighting, it is actually mostly black, so yeah, the name is kind of right for this. But yeah, underneath this plastic shell, there is a metal unibody in here, similar to what the Pixel 5a had last year, although there is no wireless charging on the back of this, so just be aware that there is no wireless charging here. So yeah, it's actually a much more substantial phone, especially with that big battery, and it's still pretty slim, and it feels really good in the hand. So yeah, in terms of construction, I think they've done a great job with this phone. And then other, of course, changes, $50. It's $50 cheaper than the Pixel 4a 5G, which, I mean, who's going to complain about that? So yeah, in terms of what this phone is, I think this is the best A-series of phones that Google has produced so far. This is a phone that I can easily recommend to anybody who's interested in a smartphone that has a great camera, a great battery, and a really good screen as well. However, the problem comes in with the fact that this phone is actually really, really hard to buy. So first of all, this phone is only available in 2 countries, United States and Japan. No other countries are getting this phone, and even in those countries, so in the United States, you can only buy this phone from the Google store online, or you can buy it from Google's carrier, Google Fi. You can't get this from any carrier. Like the Pixel 4a 5G sold really well last year because you could buy it from any carrier. You can go to a T-Mobile store and you could have picked this up on some ridiculous carrier deal and gotten it for really cheap. So yeah, in terms of buying this phone, it's actually really, really difficult. Like, this is the best phone Google has made. Like I said, the best A-series of phone that Google has made so far, and it's gonna be the one that sells the least because it's just not available anywhere to buy. Now, most likely this is due to the chip shortage. I'm sure you guys have heard about it by now. Chip shortage is causing lots of problems, and because Google is now really focusing on their Pro lineup of phones, rather their upcoming 6 series of phones, and with their own processors, they aren't maybe trying to sell too many of these, or they're not as worried about selling too many of these because that's really not what they're interested in right now. So it is kind of a shame that we aren't going to be able to buy this because it's a really, really good phone. So yeah, with that, that's pretty much it for this review. Like this if you liked it, subscribe if you guys loved it, and I will catch you guys in the next one. Bye.